All right, let's dive right in. We're going to be talking about the one thing that matters most for anyone online, getting traffic. And we're going to unpack two really powerful AI-driven secrets that are basically going to decide who wins and who loses online come 2026. So let's get into it.
You know this feeling, right? If you've ever built anything on the internet, this is the #1 struggle. I hear it all the time. You could have the world's best product, the most amazing idea, but if you don't have traffic, you're basically invisible. But what if the reason you're struggling isn't your fault? What if it's because the rules of the entire game have changed?
You know all those content strategies that worked for the past decade? Writing these super long keyword-stuffed blog posts and just kind of hoping Google would notice you? Yeah, those are officially done. We're in the age of AI search now. Things like Google's AI overviews, ChatGPT, they're summarizing the entire internet. And if your content isn't built for them, it's just going to be completely ignored.
So, the big question is, how do we actually play by these new rules? Well, it really boils down to two key secrets. Think of them as two powerful engines you can build to get traffic flowing pretty much on autopilot. Let's jump into the first one.
Okay, so have you ever stopped and wondered how a super simple tool like Linktree gets an insane amount of traffic without some massive traditional blog? The secret isn't that they're just better writers. No, it's that they stopped writing essays and they started building tools. They built what we call a utility engine.
So check this out. This is how they do it. It's so smart. First, that whole link in bio thing, that's a natural viral loop. Every new person who signs up brings their own audience, and some of those people become users, and it just keeps going. Second, and this is genius, every single user with a public profile is basically doing SEO for Linktree. They rank for millions of names without writing a single article about them. And third, when they finally do create content, it's not random. It's laser-focused on solving a problem, like how do you monetize your TikTok? They solve problems. That's the key.
And that's the big takeaway here. You have to get this. AI search doesn't want to read your beautiful, poetic article. It doesn't care. It wants a direct answer to a very specific question. So your content needs to act less like an essay and more like a tool, a utility that solves a problem right then and there. That is what gets pulled into AI summaries and served up to users.
So, okay, how do you actually make one of these things? Well, it turns out there's a simple, repeatable template that is designed specifically for how AI and modern search engines actually think.
This template is it's perfect. You start with the direct answer right up top. That's your snippet bait for the AI overviews. No fluff. Then you break down the solution into a numbered step-by-step list. Google absolutely loves this for its featured snippets. And finally, you wrap it up by answering a few of those people also ask questions you see in Google search results. That helps you capture all that related, long-tail traffic, the super specific searches people make when they're ready to find an answer. It's an entire traffic system in just one post.
Okay, so creating utility, that's secret #1. That's the foundation. But if you really want to pour gasoline on this fire, you have to combine that utility with undeniable authority. And that brings us to our second and honestly even more powerful secret, the authority engine. And this is all about data.
Let's just start with a number, 92%. What do you think that represents? Just let that sink in for a second. That massive number, 92%, that's how many people trust content that's backed up by data, way more than just some random person's opinion. In a world that is just full of noise, numbers cut right through it. They build trust instantly. They are the foundation of authority.
And this is exactly why numbers are so dominant. They don't just earn you trust. Content with real statistics gets shared more often, it gets more backlinks, and here's the kicker for our new era, AI loves to cite specific data points. Computers love numbers, right? So using them makes your content a magnet for AI citations. But here's the next level insight. Just having the data? That's not enough. The famous political researcher Frank Luntz said it best. It's not what you say, it's what people hear. How you frame the information matters way more than the information itself. And just look at this perfect example. 34% of homeowners delay repairs. Okay, kind of boring, right? It's a forgettable fact. But watch this reframe. 1 in 3 homeowners put off repairs. Suddenly that feels more relatable. Then you add, and it usually costs them more later. Are you one of them? Boom, now it's personal. It's urgent. Same exact number, but a completely different emotional impact. That's framing.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds great, but finding and framing all these stats seems like a ton of work.
And you know what? It used to be. You would have been totally right, but not anymore. AI has completely changed the game.
I mean, seriously, what used to take days of just tedious, mind-numbing research, you can now do in maybe an afternoon. AI can find super niche-specific data, help you organize it, and even take a single statistic and spin it into dozens of different content angles, almost instantly. And here's a super simple process you can use to get started. First, just ask your AI for the types of stats that actually matter in your industry. Things like market size or common customer pain points. Then, tell it to go find specific stats for each of those types. And finally, this is the fun part. Take the most powerful stat you find and ask the AI to spin it into 10 different headlines, or tweet ideas, or video scripts. It's a literal content machine.
Okay, so we've got the utility engine and we've got the authority engine. Now let's put it all together and see what a single, unstoppable playbook for traffic actually looks like.
Here it is, the whole strategy. You start by identifying a real problem your audience is facing. That's your utility. Then, you go find a powerful statistic to frame that problem and make it feel urgent. That's your authority. Then, you build your main piece of content using that 3-part utility post template. From there, you use AI to spin that one idea out into dozens of social media posts, videos, you name it. You're not just making one post anymore. You're building an entire content ecosystem.
And here's maybe the most important takeaway from all of this. When you start doing this, when you start researching and framing stats for your audience, you're doing so much more than just making content to get clicks. You are deeply educating yourself on what your audience truly cares about, their pains, their habits, their biggest goals. You stop being just a content creator and you become a genuine expert.
So that really brings us to the end. The old ways of getting traffic, they're fading, and they're fading fast. The future belongs to the people who can combine this problem-solving utility with data-driven authority. So I guess the only question left to ask is, what problem are you going to solve with data first? Thanks for tuning in.